The first book ended with my name. Not on the cover, not on the title page. At the bottom of the final page, after the last sentence printed in small black type, Mara Venn. I closed the book and checked the spine. The Orchard Fire, Anonymous, 1912. I had been fired from the city archive that morning for refusing to destroy a box of water-damaged records. The deputy curator called it budget discipline. I called it evidence. He smiled as security walked me out with my coat and a cardboard box of pencils. That night, the archive building was dark except for one green lamp burning in the basement window. There was no basement window on that side. I should have gone home. Instead, I used the old delivery key I had forgotten to return and followed the light down a staircase that was not on any floor plan. The library below the archive was larger than the building above it. Shelves rose into blackness. Ladders moved without hands. A brass card catalogue breathed in and out like sleeping lungs. At the centre desk sat a boy in a velvet jacket, maybe 12 years old, writing due dates with a bone-handled stamp. "You're late," he said. "For what?" "Your acknowledgements." He slid the Orchard Fire across the desk. I read the final page again. A farmhouse burned. A woman inside chose the locked pantry over the open field because someone had moved the warning bell from the kitchen door. Then my name. "I wasn't alive in 1912, I said. The boy shrugged. Responsibility is not impressed by calendars. Every book I opened ended the same way. A shipwreck in 1840. Mara Venn. A vanished choir in 1973. Mara Venn. A man who stepped into traffic after losing his pension file. Mara Venn. By the 7th book, my hands were shaking so badly the pages whispered against each other. These are wrong. Most people say that first. Then what do they say second? The boy looked at the shelves. They ask who wrote them. He led me to a locked cabinet labelled Corrections. Inside were the records I had refused to destroy that morning. Charred deeds, flooded school reports, hospital ledgers soft with mould. Each document had a red ribbon tied around it and a blank line at the bottom. The deputy curator had not wanted them destroyed because they were useless. He had wanted them destroyed because they were unfinished. "Read the last page again," the boy said. I thought of the Orchard Fire, a missing warning bell. That afternoon in the damaged box, I had seen an inventory note. Bell removed for cleaning, not returned. I had placed it in the discard pile because the paper smelled of mildew, and I was tired of fighting over scraps. "No," I said. The word sounded small in that room. The boy stamped a due date in the air. Midnight. Return what belongs to each story before then, or the endings remain yours. It was 11:11. The first return was easy to understand and impossible to do. The farmhouse had burned a century ago, but the library gave me the bell, blackened, palm-sized, cold as riverstone. When I touched it, I stood in an orchard under a red sky. The kitchen door was open. Smoke crawled along the ceiling. A woman coughed from inside the pantry. I hung the bell where the inventory note said it belonged and rang it until my wrist hurt. The woman heard. The book changed in my hand. The last line no longer named me. It named the farmhand who had taken the bell to sell for drink. I should have felt relieved. Instead, my employee badge cracked down the middle. The library had taken one record of me in exchange for one correction. The second book took me to a pier in winter. I returned a lighthouse report hidden by a shipping company. The name on my bank card blurred. The third took me to a school basement. I placed an attendance ledger where a mother could find it before signing her daughter away. My phone lit up with 6 missed calls from the deputy curator, then died. When it came back, every photograph of my face was a grey smear. Each correction took minutes in the library and years from somewhere else. My coat smelled of smoke, salt, chalk dust, and hospital soap. At 11:53, only one book still ended with my name. It had no title. Inside was the archive above us, tomorrow morning. The deputy curator stood beside a shredder with the damaged box. I entered, shouted, grabbed the records, and he fell backward down the service stairs. The final line read, Mara Venn. I haven't done this, I said. No, said the boy, but you are considering it. Above us, pipes groaned. The library knew my anger intimately. It had shelved it before I did. So I let him destroy the records? That would write other names. Then what do I return? The boy's face changed. For the first time, he looked his age. He opened his velvet jacket. Pinned inside was an employee badge from 1936. Mara Venn. Not my face, my grandmother's. She had founded the hidden archive under a different name. When the city wanted clean histories, she built a place for dirty endings. Then she made one cruel rule. If no one claimed responsibility, the nearest archivist would carry it until corrected. Blood made me nearest. Her final correction was still blank. She had built the shelf, named herself founder, and left the cost to the next Venn who cared enough to read mouldy paper. She used you, I said. She used everyone, the boy said, especially the dead. They cannot resign. At 11:58, the untitled book opened to a blank final page. It wanted my choice. I could expose the curator violently and become the ending the library expected. I could do nothing and let thousands of records vanish into convenient silence. Or I could give the library a name it could not shelve as easily. At midnight, I walked upstairs with the damaged box, my phone recording, and every basement door open behind me. The deputy curator was waiting by the shredder. You don't work here anymore, he said. Neither do they. The first dead clerk stepped out behind me carrying a ledger, then a nurse, then a farmhand with burned hands, then a girl in a choir dress with river mud on her hem. Not ghosts exactly. Citations. Human-shaped evidence. The curator ran. He did not fall. I did not touch him. But the video went public before dawn. So did the ledgers. So did my grandmother's rules. By noon, the city archive was surrounded by reporters, lawyers, families, and people holding names they had been told were lost. I went back to the basement that night. The boy was gone. On the desk lay one book with a new title. The library where every book ends with my name. I turned to the last page. For once, it did not say Mara Venn. It said, unclaimed. Then, slowly, letter by letter, the words changed. Mara Venn, archivist of record. By morning, the city payroll said I had never worked there. My lease had no tenant. My school records belonged to a girl with a different face. But the books stayed open. That is the thing no one tells you about putting your name at the end. Sometimes it is not a signature. Sometimes it is a door no one can close behind you.